Hey guys, today we're actually going to look at another Macintosh. And no, this is not the 7600 I talked about in an earlier video. This is a Power Mac G3 in a desktop case. Specifically, I believe they called it the Outrigger case. And I was looking for a G3 in the desktop form for quite a while, and I finally picked up this guy for a good price. And this is, I think my plans are going to be to make this into kind of my main Macintosh system. So I really plan on using this machine to play the bulk of my 90s Macintosh software, Macintosh exclusives, just messing around with Mac stuff. I think this is the machine that's going to be the main guy. So this video we're going to kind of look at it in its base form that I have here, and I'm also going to do some upgrades to it. Kind of minor upgrades. I do not want to take this thing to stupid levels. You can do that, but you know, I'm going to stick with a G3 CPU in it, and not even a super high speed one. I'm gonna kind of stick to fairly period stuff. That means late 90s, early 2000s. If I need to play something more intensive, I have a later Macs I can use. This is strictly for, like, you know, 90s stuff. Trying to keep it mostly period here. So we're going to do some minor upgrades. I believe this is the last traditional Macintosh that came in a desktop format. Until later, I believe. It wasn't until they did that again until the Mini Mac. So it supported both IDE and SCSI formats. This case isn't too bad. You can see it's interesting. There's a big circle on top that's actually normal beige color, and the rest is kind of yellowed. I'm guessing they had a big monitor sitting up there, and that was like the foot of the monitor, and the rest of it, you know. The case, I believe it's pretty much the same case as, I think it's the 76 and 7500. They just changed this little badge here. Motherboard obviously is different, but yeah, it's pretty much the same case, which means it suffers from the same issues, which is the plastic has not only yellowed, but gotten fairly brittle over time. So you've got to be careful with these. Thankfully on mine, like this power button still, it hasn't snapped anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if during the filming of this video we do snap something on this. I mean, that is the downside of these cases. They become very kind of brittle and fragile over time. Just really quick here, we got 1.44 megabyte drive. We have a CD-ROM drive. I think this might be, I want to say 8 speed, but I'm pretty sure it's probably faster. I might think about upgrading that in this video. And zip drive. Always handy to have a zip drive. Right here we have a speaker, because there is internal sound, and then a power button here. You can either use this power button or keyboards at the time, of course, had a power button on them too. Alright, so let's turn this around and take a look at the back. Alright, so here's the back of the machine. You can see the case, the lid is a little hard to put on. Last time I put it on, I must have put it on a little incorrectly because it's not fitting just right. Another thing I don't like about these cases, but yes, they did make the G3 in both a very rare all-in-one model and a tower. I used to actually have a G3 tower, but I have a soft spot for desktop cases, and in my setup now I really need a desktop. How it's set up, because I kind of have this under my 486, and it's a good spot for it. So I really wanted the desktop model as opposed to the tower, but like I said, I'm not a fan of this case and the plastic brittle design. But of course we have the power here, also a spot to put in your monitor. Let's see, down here we have, I believe that is your SCSI. Then we have a ADB port. Then we have looks like built-in Ethernet, printer, modem. There is built-in display. We'll take a look at that when I open it up, but I believe it's some form of the ATI Rage card. Apparently another modem, and here's your microphone and audio out. Now this is an interesting thing. This may be different depending on the model. This is a perch card or a personality card. And they're a little bit different. I wanted to upgrade this too. There's 3 levels of it. There's this one that's the basic one. And then there's another one that's basically an AV card. It has like RCA in and outs. And that was not too hard to find, but I haven't seen any on eBay lately. And then there's a really kind of rare one called the Bordeaux card, and it has like DVD decoding support. And I have never seen one of those. So it would have been cool to upgrade this at least to the AV, but practically, I mean, for me, I'm not using it as a video capture device, so it actually would have really done nothing in practical terms for me. You know, maybe if I find one in the future, it'll be cool to swap this out with it, but other than that. So let's take a look at the inside of this thing. Okay, so like other models that use this case, there's two tabs under here. You just press up on them and then pull out and then kind of up. And there we go. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the inside of this guy. Alright, so here's the front of the machine. There's usually like a metal plate thing that kind of sits here. It always kind of falls off and gets in the way, so I just kind of removed it. Here's our floppy drive, CD drive, which I may be replacing, and here's the zip drive. Now here's that power button. It's not really very secure there, and it has these little tabs. Now, I've had these tabs break off, and it's really annoying. Thankfully, this one's still in one piece, but you got to be careful with it. Okay, so here we are. It's kind of familiar if you guys have watched earlier video, because like I said, it is the same case, but motherboard is different. Now let me remember how to, there's all these little tabs and stuff you've got to play with. There we go. So that opens up there. So we've got 3 PCI slots. You got a lot of space in here, so here they're like full length, although man, I can't think of any PCI card that's like really, maybe like some kind of capture card, but this will pretty much fit any PCI card that has like a Mac version. Right here we have, that personality card I talked about. Like I said, this is the standard one. I think it's called Whisper, and it just has the sound in and out. Whisper, and then I think the second one, I can't remember what the AV one, and then it's Wings. Wings is the AV one, and then after that is Bordeaux with the DVD decoding. But yeah, there's just a special slot for this card. If you get like a different one, a more advanced one, you can just pop this out and put in the other one. Alright, so this, I believe, folds up to reveal the motherboard. Alright, so there we go. So a little bit smaller motherboard, so we have room for a hard drive. So this is a 4 GB hard drive, ATA, I believe. Yeah, so you do have onboard SCSI and then ATA. Now, I think what I'm going to go with, I'm going to upgrade this to, well, I'll show you my upgrades in a minute here. Here is the CPU. It is a PowerPC. Now, these came with 233 megahertz, 266 megahertz, and also 300 megahertz PowerPC G3 CPUs. This one is 266 megahertz with 512 kilobytes of L2 cache. On the little chip thing, you can see it kind of sticks out there. So here's our RAM right here. Now this took PC66. I believe that these usually came with 64 or 128 megabytes when you would buy the system stock. I have fully upgraded mine to the full 768 megabytes of RAM. So quite a bit for the time. I believe right here you have this is the ROM. It's on like kind of like a Coast module. PRAM here. Not too much else to say about this, although I do want to point out there's different revisions of the ROM. Early versions had some issues with the ATA devices actually wouldn't accept the slave device. So essentially you could only have one device to each of the IDE. If you had like IDE, you couldn't have 2 hard drives on one cable, but I have the latest version of the ROM, which I believe is the C version, which they fixed that. So let's look at the upgrades we're going to do to this thing. Okay, so I just actually was thinking and I noticed something about this RAM. Now I took it out and took a look at it, and it is, if it'll focus, PC133. So you can use PC133 in these things. You don't have to use PC66. But also, these are all 512 megabyte sticks, which, seeing as this board only can see up to 768 megabytes, I don't know why I had three 512 megabyte sticks in there, because that's 1.5 gigabytes. So we're going to remove one. There's still 256 that are going to be wasted, but whatever. So we don't actually need the 3 sticks. So let's move on to looking at the upgrades we're going to do. So the first upgrade we're going to do, and hopefully the simplest, is I'm going to upgrade the video by putting in a PCI card. Now this is a Rage 128. It's the Mac version. I believe this is from like 98 or 99. So yeah, and it even has the little, I believe this is the memory expansion DVD decoder thing, maybe. Anyways, this should be a nice little upgrade over the onboard video, which I believe is maybe like the Rage Pro, I believe is on board. So this isn't like a huge, massive upgrade, but it is a nice little upgrade, and it is kind of keeping with the times too. So we're not doing like crazy upgrade on this thing, and this should be very compatible and work very well with all those like 90s Macintosh games. So next thing we're gonna do for another PCI slot, I'm gonna try to put this in to add some USB and FireWire support, but what I want to run on this thing is Mac OS 8.6, so I don't know I'm not 100% sure if 8.6 is compatible with USB or FireWire, so I don't know if this will work out. So this is kind of a maybe upgrade. Next thing we're going to do, I want to add a Tempo ATA 133 ATA controller or IDE controller. So this will be the fastest we can go with IDE. And along with that, I'm going to add probably, obviously a larger hard drive than 4 gigabytes, maybe just a little 40 gigabytes, which isn't huge, especially by today's standards, but against the 4 gigabyte drive that's in there, that's a pretty big upgrade. It should be a nice little speed upgrade too. I'm not sure what the speed is on the motherboard. That might be ATA 66. I'm not 100% sure, but this should definitely be an upgrade. And I know some of these cards won't let you like boot from the hard drive depending on the card, but this one should work. I should be able to use it as the boot drive. And then lastly here I have this CPU. This is a 300 megahertz G3. Again, like I said, it's nothing drastic over the 266 in there, but the thing about this, it's still sort of correct because these things actually came with in a 300 megahertz models. So I'm just kind of bumping it up to the highest model, but also the 300 megabytes G3 sticks here have, well, sticks, whatever, whatever they're called here, chips, have a megabyte of L2 cache, whereas the 233 and 266 just have half that, 512 kilobytes. So that's a nice little increase, doubling the L2 cache along with upping the CPU speed by 33 megahertz. So I'm not sure how this will go. I don't think there's any like jumpers or switches. I think it's just a straight like pop that one out and pop this one in. But I've never replaced the CPU on these things before, so I guess we'll just have to see how it goes. All right. So I guess I'll begin doing the upgrades here. Alright, so I'm going to do this one step at a time. So I installed the video card. I haven't done drivers or anything like that yet, but this is interesting because it seems to detect the card because my resolution's changed. It looks fine, but I obviously probably have to install drivers to get 3D acceleration stuff. But when I went to look in the RAM, if it will focus, I got 512 megabytes. So I guess you do have to have a stick in each of those slots, even if you're wasting a ton. So I guess I'm going to power down and put that stick back in, even though I'm wasting it. I actually don't have 3 sticks of 120. Well, maybe I do. Maybe I'll look. So then at least I'm not wasting a whole bunch of RAM. But for those of you that want to do this and you don't have 328 megabyte sticks, you know, you can use larger sticks. But to get the full amount, apparently you have to have one stick in each of the RAM slots. I'm also thinking about hard drive, just to make things simple. I think I might just put the secondary drive, like 40 megabyte drive here, and just keep the drive that's in there as kind of like my OS hard drive, and then just put like games and state on the faster drive, just so I don't have to like reinstall the OS and stuff. I don't even think I have OS 8 anywhere here, so I might just do that. I don't know, maybe I'm being lazy there. I guess it would be faster if I just put everything on one like faster drive, but I don't know, I might not do that. Alright, so I think what I'm going to do next, I'm going to put that RAM back in. I think I'm going to do the CPU swap before I do the other stuff, so I'm going to try that next. Alright, so I've removed the heatsink. There's no thermal paste on these things, it just looks like a little thermal pad. And then this should just... it should just pop out, and then I replace it just like any other CPU. So yeah, I'm gonna do that, and then we'll see if it boots up. Okay, so here comes the moment of truth. Here's the old 266 megahertz CPU. So I've installed the new one. I even put a little dab of thermal paste on it. So let's power it up and see if it boots up. Okay, I'll hit the button on the keyboard now. We got a bong sound. Video initialized. I think, yeah, okay. Okay, good. Okay, excellent. Okay, so I'm still getting the machine speed is 266 megahertz. So maybe I'm gonna have to check. There may be like some jumpers I have to set for the front side bus, perhaps. Like I said, I'm not, even though I cover a lot of these Macs, I'm still kind of a Mac noob, so I'm not even sure how to check the CPU. Like, I hope I just didn't get another 266 megahertz CPU the guy sent me and he mislabeled it. I guess I should have checked the chip first. No, because look, the backside L2 caches, if it'll focus, is 1 megabyte, and I don't think they made the 266 megahertz G3s with 1 megabyte of L2 cache. So I think it's the right CPU. I probably just have to, there must be jumpers or something, I have to set it to 300 megahertz. So I'm going to go check that quickly. Okay, so doing a check online, I found out that there is indeed jumpers, and it's under this warranty is broken sticker. Now right there's kind of a jumper block on those jumpers, and it's set how this was sent from the factory stock. So I'm going to have to remove that block and then individually put jumpers on there to set the PCI bus speed, the system bus speed, and then the multiplier on the CPU. Now theoretically I can overclock the CPU, but I think I'm going to stick with a nice safe 300 megahertz, although I might be tempted to go with 333 since I do have a dab of premium thermal paste on there. Maybe I'll add a fan and go with 333, which isn't out of the question. I believe some of the tower models ship with 333 megahertz. So if I can find a fan that will attach to this heatsink, I may try that very slight overclock. But I think first I'm going to see if I can get it going at 33 megahertz or 300 megahertz. So guess what broke? I decided to use this power button, and yeah, the little one of these little things snapped off. Of course. I mean, maybe it was a self-fulfilling prophecy, but yeah, that's what you get with these. I mean, oh man, I hate these cases. I hate this all plastic design. It's just okay. So anyways, a little roadblock. I actually don't have jumpers that are small enough for these. So for right now, I guess I'm gonna have to put this jumper block back on. I'll play with the IDE card, which I did install, but I'm just gonna have to wait till I get jumpers that are small enough to set this thing to like 300 megahertz. Okay, so basically this project is on hold for a couple reasons. One is I need smaller jumpers for that jumper block to set my CPU speed, but another thing, these, I didn't even realize that at first, these floppy drives are sort of like non-standard drives. If you look, sorry it's kind of dark now, but if you look, there's on the power supply, there's a connector, Molex connector for a floppy drive. But it looks like these drives get their power via the cable, because if you can see, the spot is gone where the power supply, where the Molex thing would have connected, and it does use a non-standard floppy drive connector. So I'm guessing the power goes through there. It's just odd that something this late is using like a proprietary sort of Apple floppy drive. I don't know if you can replace that with a regular floppy drive. I'm guessing you can, but the cable's different, so you need like a different floppy controller. I don't know. I don't know. That kind of surprised me a little bit. Another thing too is I don't have enough Molex connectors for putting a drive up here, so I'm gonna have to get a splitter cable if I don't already have one somewhere. So yeah, I guess I will get back to this once those jumpers come in and I get the appropriate cables. Okay guys, we're back, and it's been about a week and a half, and the little micro jumpers came in a couple days ago. So I'm gonna try setting the jumper block here for a 300 megahertz CPU, and hopefully that works, and then we'll have 300 megahertz, and then the CPU part will be completed. I was also thinking I actually can't put a fan on this because there's when this comes down on top, there's no clearance, so there isn't actually room for a fan. I don't even think there's room, maybe a very slim fan, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like there's going to be much clearance at all. I also used a little bit of super glue to fix that, but I think I'm just going to use the soft power on button on the keyboard from now on. So right now what our project pretty much is, we're going to set the jumpers for 300 megahertz, boot it up, see if that works. I don't know, here's that 133 ATA IDE card. I cannot get it to boot. I can't get this original drive to boot with that, which is weird because that card worked fine in my G4 and the hard drive's booted from it. So I don't know, I'm still going to try to set it up. If I can't get the thing to boot from it, I'll use like I said, a secondary drive, like a bigger drive. I'll just keep the OS on this and it will boot from this, and then I'll put all my data and stuff on the faster ATA 133 drive. And then we've got our, oh, and I got a splitter too because the power supply there isn't, so if I do use the secondary hard drive, I'm just going to use this splitter. I put it up here, and then I think for I'm going to try going with SCSI, since we have that onboard SCSI. I'm going to try to replace the IDE CD-ROM drive with a SCSI drive. So I've got this Ultra Plex 40. This is like a Plex. Someone outside. Ultraplex or Plex or whatever, they're seen as a pretty quality SCSI CD-ROM drive maker. I also have a SCSI DVD drive. I might try that instead, but I've never tested these drives, so I don't even know if they work. And sometimes getting CD drives to work in Macintosh is a weird and unnecessarily difficult process, even though it shouldn't be, probably because I'm not schooled in the way of Apple so much, but I know certain Apple OSs need like certain drives. They're like Apple branded drives, and they need certain like drivers, I guess, and it's annoying and it's a mess and I hate it. This is a later G3, so maybe it won't be so bad with a later operating system. Hopefully I can just put this thing in and it will work. Okay, so we'll get back after I set those jumpers. Alright, so here's the moment of truth. Jumpers are set. I hope they're set correctly. It's probably too dark to see that. So let's power it up and see what happens, right? Okay, that's good. Signal's coming in. Okay. Alright, well, let's go and I'll get back to this when it actually boots up. We'll check the speed. Alright, looks like it was a success. So it looks like it was a success. As we see, we have processor info, PowerPC G3 at 300 megahertz. And there's our backside L2 cache is 1 megabyte. So it worked. Okay, so the CPU upgrade is complete. Now, again, very modest speed increase from 266 megahertz. So very modest 33 megahertz speed increase. But like I said, I didn't want to go crazy with this, and I did want to try to keep it in to what this era. Of course, you could put a faster one in. But I did double the L2 cache, which should be nice. That should help a bit. So I guess the next phase of this would be to try to get that SCSI CD ROM drive in there. Failing that, maybe just a faster IDE drive would be nice. So it's on to that part of things. Alright, so far no luck with the drives. Now, this one really obviously had problems. It didn't want to open the tray. You'd have to hit it multiple times, and it couldn't. Sometimes when I test them, I kind of set them out of the case like that, or like that at an angle. The tray would even only open if it was like exactly level, and even then it had a lot of trouble opening. It wouldn't close. You had to push it in, and it wouldn't spin the discs or anything. So I'm pretty sure this one's kind of like done. Now for the Pioneer DVD drive, it's a slot loader, but it's not working either. Now it is being detected. Both drives are being detected. You probably can't see that well because it's all fuzzy, but it does come up. It says the drive number and model and whatnot, but like this one's not working either. Oh god, I hate this camera one of these days. It will just spit it out. It just does that. And I don't know if it's the drive, I don't know if it's my relative inexperience with Macintosh. There's some setting I have to do, or some kind of driver I have to load or something. I would guess not, because I mean the system's seeing it, and I don't know. Maybe it has to be like a special drive for Macintoshes. I don't know, it's just spitting it out. Oh, and if you are trying to do this, make sure you have the Terminator set on these. If you don't have the Terminator set, I didn't originally have the Terminator set on this. It's a jumper on the back that says like Term or Terminator. It won't boot up. So make sure you have the Terminator set. But yeah, I don't know what's wrong with it. So I'm out of fast SCSI drives, at least faster than probably what this is. I don't even know the speed of this drive, but anyways, I can always try just directly replacing that drive with this drive that's like a 52 CDR or CDRW drive or whatever, and just see if that works. But then again, this isn't like an Apple branded drive. Now, I know there are like universal drivers, or I don't even think Apple's call them drivers. They're called something else. I could try finding those and messing around with it, but I don't know. I get the feeling in the end I'm probably just gonna leave what's in there. So let's just try like a direct replacement and see what happens. Okay, so this is just the standard IDE drive. This is from 2002 though, so I'm sure it's a faster one than what's in here, but the thing is, it acts like a normal drive. It powers up, it opens and closes fine, but the system just isn't seeing it. And when you put a CD in, it doesn't pop up. Now, I strongly feel that's probably because this isn't an Apple branded drive, and the OS I have installed, the 8.6, doesn't have like universal, I believe Apple calls them extensions rather than drivers. I could be wrong there though. but it doesn't have like the universal CD-ROM extension, aka driver, so it's just not seeing this drive at all, which is annoying. So I'm either just gonna, well, I have a couple options. I can just leave what I have in there. It works. I mean, it's not super slow. It's from when this thing came out, so late 90s CD-ROM drive. Not bad. I could just keep it. I could go online and try to find this universal extension and figure out how and where to install it, which I'm probably going to do. Or I could just go and find a faster Apple branded drive. So I think my first attempt, I'm gonna try my hand at finding an extension, or is that it? Yeah, extension for non-Apple drives, and figure out how to install those. Again, my Apple experience is very limited, but I guess this is part of the learning process. So off to the internet. Okay, anyways, I had an idea, and apparently it works. Rather than hook the drive up directly to the motherboard, I thought, what if I just hooked it up to that the ATA IDE 133 controller that I have in there, because the system does see that card. And so I did, and lo and behold, when it's hooked up to the card, again, bad focus, well, it appears to work. It actually spun up and it sees the CD in there. So, so now to see if it works, actually, to test it out a little bit more. Okay, so yeah, it appears to be certainly working. I was able to install Quake. So yeah, that's nice. I also did a little checking. The onboard IDE is ATA2, so having a ATA 133 card, it's a nice little speed upgrade there from the onboard IDE controller. I also want to show my ROM revision there. $770.45F1. I think earlier I said I had like the ROM revision C, but I believe that number corresponds with the B revision, which is okay, because as long as you don't have the A revision, because the A revision has some issues with like the onboard IDE controller, like you can't do a master slave, you can only do master configurations, I believe. So keep that in mind with if you have one of these systems. So not sure what I want. I mean, obviously this drive's faster, but being it's not like Apple branded, and probably not going to mess with the extensions or drivers. I don't think I can boot with like an OS from this drive, unless it's like an Apple drive. But I don't think I'm going to be doing that anyways, because I think I'm just going to keep that, just for simplicity's sake. I'm just going to keep that drive to boot from, and probably add a second drive with the AT133, at least for now. So yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. So yeah, this drive's about twice as fast as this one, and then especially being on the faster thing there. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Okay. So I think I have things how I want them now. So off the IDE 1, I haven't like set it up all nice yet, but I have it going into the CD-ROM drive as I set the CD-ROM drive as slave, so that works. And then I have this going to my Maxtor 40 gigabyte ATA 133 drive. So I think 40 gigs is quite enough for this system. It did take me a while to figure out how to mount or set up this hard drive. Again, I'm not really familiar with any of the Mac OSs that much. But I finally found, and by the way, online is surprisingly unhelpful. You get some stuff about OS 10, but if you put anything like mounting a hard drive in Mac OS 8 or 8.6 or anything, you get like nothing. I was surprised of the lack of information. Maybe it's just such a simple thing that there's not information out there, but it took me a minute to figure it out. But anyways, won't focus. Anyways, I went through and I found something called a program on the hard drive called Disk Setup, and it went through and it seen my drive. It said untitled or uninitialized. I just clicked on it and then I hit initialize, and there it is. So that's set up now. So I think I'm pretty much done with this system. I just got to put it back together real nice now. Now there are two problems. One is I don't actually have a sled. There should be a sled. It sucks because I used to actually have like extra sleds and I got rid of them all. So I don't really have a way to like securely mount this hard drive yet. It's a little bit warm. Second thing is I need to probably replace that PRAM battery down there because it's doing a weird thing where it only boots every other cycle. Like if I turn this thing off right now or hit reset or shut down and start it back up, then the screen will never initialize. It just stays black. But like if I pull the plug out then and I wait a second and plug it back in and reboot it, it will boot up just fine. So I think that's a PRAM issue. I also installed ATI drivers, updated the OpenGL for the video card, so I think this machine is good to go. If I do anything in the future, it might be to get rid of that slower drive down there and replace it with this and just have this as like my boot drive, but it just seems like hassle. It boots up fine. I don't need it to boot up like that or anything. And I could even technically replace that with like an SSD or something, or SATA with adapters, but I don't really think I need to bother. I can wait a minute or two for the thing to boot up and then just play my games off this faster, a bigger hard drive here. So I think I'm done with this project, so I'm going to try to put it back together. I don't know if I'm going to kind of try to jerry-rig this thing in or find a sled for it, and then we'll finish up this video. Another problem is I actually don't think this cable, it's not long enough. When I put the drive here, this cable won't reach over. I don't think so. I don't know what I'm going to have to do with that, except maybe use two separate cables. I don't know. It seems really annoying. I'll figure something out, but I'll get back to you guys when this thing is pretty much ready to look at some games. Okay, and now to replace this battery with this new one I just got recently. So we've got to take the old battery out, and this should just kind of like pop right off. There we go, sort of. Yeah, see? That top comes off, and then that just pops out, and then we put in the new one, which I should have taken out of the bag prior, so I wasn't doing this one-handed. Oh, it's in two bags. Good, nice, fun. There we go, new battery. Okay, well, you get the idea. There we go, there, got it. It was doing weird things. I think this battery, it was still kind of working, but I mean, who knows how long this was in there. And it was, like I said, it was doing that thing where like every other startup, it wasn't really starting up, or was it shutting down? I don't know. It like randomly would boot up in a different resolution too. So hopefully this battery, new PRAM battery, should fix that issue. I did find another flaw in my plan, and that is the IDE cables just aren't long enough to reach something here, because like maybe I'm not seeing something, but they're just, even on the farthest slot away, these cables aren't long enough to snake through that hole and then snake up and connect. It's just not long enough. Now the CD drive's right there, so it can make it, but the hard drive's just, it's a little too long. Now it can make it easy before because they were right here, the onboard one's right here, so it's long enough. But I'm thinking to get to that hard drive slot, the only other option is to, there's a little stand here that always, damn it, there we go. I wonder if I could just kind of set it over top and connect it like that, and hopefully it won't like bulge the case up just because it's right there. It's pretty thin. So I mean, it's with these things, when you're doing things that maybe the original engineers or designers weren't necessarily thinking about, you always run into these little issues. Unless, do they make, I wonder if they make like IDE cord extenders with like a male end and a female end, so you could like plug it in here and they would extend it. That might be useful. I'll look into it. Okay, I mean, the more I look at this, even for the CD drive, if I'm going to use a card, it looks like I'm going to need some kind of extender. Now, I looked online and there are IDE extenders, but the ones I see are either for like laptops, like this laptop cables or stuff, or this older cable design, which that kind of negates my whole speed. You know, the whole point of using this for the higher speed, because if I go under here and hook it up that way, and when I close it, it's like, it's so taut. I actually can't even use this one. I have to use the IDE one, and it like pulls part of it. It's just, it bends the card. I just really don't like it. And I can't even do it over the top because, hold on. Oh my god, it's that thing again. Okay, there we go. It's a little stand. It's supposed to be helpful, but actually it's really annoying, and I really want to break it off. When I hook it up this way, even if I can do it over the top and like press it down and put the case on, I'm gonna have to disconnect. I guess I can do that, but I'm gonna have to disconnect it every time I open it, because it will rip it out if I just open it. So I guess I could do that, but it's just annoying. Now, I did figure out a way to do at least one of them to set up the hard drive. I can just take this out, get the sled and move it here, and then I can use, since it's slower anyways, I can just use the slower connector here and hook up the zip drive and this to that, and then I can take my newer Macintosh drive and put it here and then just connect it and worm it around and connect it that way. But the CD drive, I'm either gonna have to do it over the top and like just disconnect it every time I open this case, which I might do that because I'm probably gonna be opening the case a lot, or go it through here and just have it like really taut, and I don't really like that, or try to hunt down one of those extenders. So that's annoying. Hey, alright, so another week or so has passed, and I did get another sled for the hard drive. So what I did is put our 40 gigabyte ATA 133 drive down here where the primary drive was, and so it reaches okay, and I can connect it up to the PCI card. And then through here, I have, snaking up, I have connected to the primary, the 4 gigabyte that I'm just, yes, I could upgrade that and reinstall OS 8 and whatever, make it faster, but I'm just fine. I just don't want to deal with it, so I'm fine with just having, you know, the main OS, and they'll just boot from the original drive. And I have the CD drive hooked up, and then of course the floppies hooked up. That weird, it's just the one cable, there's not even a power Molex for it on this machine. But like, the problem, it's a cabling nightmare because I still don't have the zip drive connected, because like I can't, it just doesn't reach. Like if I try to stake it through here and do like, oh, connect it to the CD-ROM and the zip drive, it doesn't reach. It's just not long enough. Like I have to pull for the control, for the CD-ROM drive, it has to come like, when I close it, I have to like snake it through over. So yeah, it's just how the cabling is. If you have a lot of drives, it's really a pain in the ass with this case. So I don't know what I mean, I think I can set the zip drive to master, and maybe also like put it on the built-in secondary ID and also snake that up around, because it would be a lot easier if I could have a way, because I was originally going to have it like snake up through here and then have like slave and then master with the hard drive, but it's not, it just doesn't reach if I go it through there. Maybe I can do it up through here. I don't know. I've got to play with it, but it's just really, it's not very convenient how it's set up for, like if you have a lot of drives, the cabling, it just doesn't seem to quite reach. And then when I am bringing it up over, it's giving it a little bit of a problem, like putting the top back on. It's a little bit annoying, but it looks like hopefully the end of this project is in sight. It's basically just getting this zip drive connected, and other than that, everything else is working. I've got the RAM maxed out. It's seeing all the drives, video cards working, so it's looking good. That seems to be the last little hurdle. Okay, I think this build is done. Now, as expected, there were some casualties as far as the plastic case goes. It happens with these things. Of course, I tried to fix that tab there, but it knocked off again, but it seems to be holding in place, so it's okay. That plastic thing over here, it didn't really break, but I removed it. It doesn't do anything anyways, except, I don't know, keep a little bit of dust out, looks nice. But it was getting in the way of this a little bit, so I just took it off. I think there was like a metal thing down here too. I removed that. This thing, it's pretty loose and janky, but I'm just gonna leave it. So yeah, it's like I said, I really hate these cases, the build quality on these cases. But let's take a look. We've seen this screen before, but yeah, we're doing good here. So we have our video memory, our built-in memory, 768 megabytes. We've got the 1 megabyte of backside L2 cache, and we're running at 300 megahertz like I wanted. So let's look at the other thing. Alright, so here's our hard drive. This is the old one that I'm booting off of. Here we have that's the iOmega zip drive. Then we have our other hard drive. That's the 40 gigabyte ATA 133. Then we have our CD-ROM drive that I put in that we upgraded. And there's our display card, the Rage 128 with the DVD expansion thing on it. Alright, so that is that. Alright, so I want to show a couple games playing on this machine, but before that, I was having a problem for a while with games, and it took me a minute to figure out. Thank you for the Vintage Computer Forums for tipping me off to it, but virtual memory, I had to turn my virtual memory off because it was giving me massive stuttering problems in games. So I'll show you an example in a minute here, but if you have a game that does like stuttering and audio, especially, I think it's just like audio, but it could be the video too. Just turn off your virtual memory. That fixed it for me, and I have so much memory I don't need to run virtual memory. But if you've got like audio stuttering and stuff in your games, just try turning off the virtual memory in your memory settings. Like I said, for me it cleared the problem right off. I actually got the box and another one of those Tempo ATA 133s. Now I'm not going to put two of these in that machine, but I was looking over here and it does say blah blah blah. Okay, it's boots from any attached hard drive. So that hard drive should have booted when attached to the card. So I don't know, maybe there is software in here. So now I actually have like a software disk. But this is like AV Tools. If you are using it, see, this is for use if you're using a pre-G3 Mac. And our experience audio studying or video artifacts during play. This is more for like, I don't know, like video editing or something on a pre-G3, so I don't think this is going to do anything. So I don't know why that drive wasn't booting from this card. It wouldn't matter anyways. It wasn't an ATA 133 hard drive anyway, so I guess it really doesn't matter. But just, you know, things that make you go, I know, I mean, this video keeps going and going. I think this is going to be my longest video ever, but just little issues keep popping up with this thing. So putting it all back together, putting the top on, it hasn't been fitting right. And I finally figured, I suspected the whole time, but I didn't want to acknowledge it. I had to yank the RAM. The RAM was slightly too tall. If you have RAM that's slightly taller than like the heatsink on that CPU, there's no clearance. So it was slightly too high, and the cover just wasn't going on right now. You could kind of like force it, but it was kind of like the back wasn't going on right, and I just didn't like the idea of it pushing down into the RAM slot. So I just yanked the RAM. You want something, this is not what I have in it, but you want something slightly lower profile. Let me see, it's like it's ever so slightly smaller, or not as tall, but that's what you have to do. So I only have 320 megabytes in there now. Hopefully it doesn't matter. That's more than enough for like 90s games to play on this thing, so that's not a big deal. Maybe later on I'll find some lower profile 256 sticks, 3 of them. Right now I have 2 128 and 164. Yeah, you're supposed to have all matching RAM or whatever, but it works. So another cute issue. Now the case is on fine. It's probably just because I'm not using an Apple CD-ROM drive. But here, let me start it up. I'll show you. Oh, I gotta plug it in first. Anyways, I got this issue now. Let's see, it's the case. Just there's not enough. But if you push up very slightly. So I mean literally you just a tiny bit of force and it gives it enough room. And I've tried to like reseat this top, and I cannot get it to a point where it won't do that unless I just slightly put pressure. So that's a little annoying. Funny enough, I was thinking, and I actually have another Mac that it's kind of working right now, but I'm gonna keep it a surprise what it is. But I'm gonna work on it, and it might replace this actually, because this is it's working now. It's working okay, but it's just a bunch of little annoyances with this machine that I don't really like. Now the other Mac I have is a tower, and I really wanted a desktop because, as you can see, it fits in my little setup nicely. Whereas the tower, there's really nowhere. I'd have to like set it on the floor here like this one, and I don't really want to do that. But I might have to go with a different model here, but right now this is kind of working. So having weird issues with the video too. You'll see in the capture for Quake, it works on the desktop and the OS fine. I get high resolutions, it identifies it and stuff, but I don't think it's 3D accelerating, because when I play a game like Quake, it seems to me like it's running in software mode no matter what I do, and I can't access higher resolutions. Now I tried switching back to the onboard video, which is also Rage, but it's like a generation behind. It's like Rage 2 Pro chip, I think, on there with like half the RAM, and actually it's slightly higher frames per second in Quake than with the Rage 128. I went through the drivers, I double checked the drivers, everything seems okay. So I don't know why the 128 should be a little bit more powerful than the onboard, but I don't know. So finally, let's look at some games. Oh, sorry, I meant extensions. The ATI extensions seem to be the right ones with Max. Okay, here we are, machine booting up OS 8.6. Now I want to apologize ahead of time because I was having a lot of capture problems. The image quality is not that good. The sound is terrible for most of these captures. I don't know what was going on with the sound. There's like a weird sort of echo, and it's stereo, but it comes when I play it out of my computer, it's only coming out of one speaker, but it is like the stereo mono, and it just sounds terrible, and I don't know why, because when I just play this Mac normally, like through the speakers, it just sounds fine, but I don't know why it captured the audio so strangely for most of these. I have no idea. So we're just going to look at a couple games here coming up. I'm not going to go through this whole loading up process, but I always like to show, you know, it loading up for you guys. So first thing we're going to look at here is Warrior 2.
look at him limp. Maybe, I don't know, maybe my audio cord wasn't in correctly because it kind of goes in and out of stereo, but I don't know. MechWarrior 2, yeah, well, you guys will see in a minute here. And I never could get it to run. I tried to Google the problem. There was one other person having the same problem, but he never got an answer. The best he got was like, well, maybe your OS is incompatible because it's an earlier game. So, I don't know. I didn't want to put the effort in it. I couldn't get it to run. Here's Duke Nukem 3D. I don't know why I put the settings on medium. I don't know why I did that, but here it is. Well, you'll notice a lot of these games are just PC ports because there's not a lot of Mac exclusives, and I don't have any, even if there is, I don't have a lot of them. So, yeah, most of these are just PC ports. It runs, Duke 3D works, runs okay. There's no music, oddly enough. Same with Quake, I couldn't get the music to stream off the CD. Yet, other games it does, so I don't know what the hell's happening with some of these games. Unless the Mac version doesn't have. Okay, so this is a port, obviously, DOS port of Star Trek 25th Anniversary Edition, and oh, the intro music on this is horrible. And I did double check it with just the speakers to see if it was screwing up, and no, I believe this is the real music to the game. It's pretty bad from the Mac's audio chip. Please someone tell me if it's not supposed to sound like that, because I checked everything and that seems to be the right way it's supposed to sound, which is like really bad. It just sounds terrible to me. Here's Full Throttle, another PC port, LucasArts well-thought-of adventure, point-and-click adventure game. I'm actually playing through this game right now on this Mac. The box says it's the Mac enhanced version, but I don't know how this is enhanced over the PC version. Maybe better resolution.
Do not play in or around dumpster. Do not kick dumpster. Do not sleep in dumpster. Usage of this container for disposal of human remains may be a violation of local health ordinances. Good thing Ripburger didn't touch my bike. Good thing for him.
Okay, so here we have Quake here going on without the sound streaming from the CD to music. I, for some reason, couldn't get that to work, but yeah, I had a lot of weird issues with Quake. Like, I couldn't get higher resolutions, and although it's fully playable, you can see it here doing the time demo, it plays just fine. When you check the frames per second, I'm getting the same performance level as like a late Pentium 1, like a 200 megahertz MMX Pentium 1 machine with like a Verge card in it. You know, because I've done other benchmarks with my other machines, and performance levels coming up just slightly faster than those Pentium 200 machines, which I'm pretty sure 300 megahertz G3 should be a little faster than that with a later ATI card. So I don't know. I checked the driver extensions and stuff, and it seems to be all good. I mean, on desktop I can get whatever resolution, but actually in the game, I don't know. I'm not real familiar with Mac, so if someone out there knows, just let me know. But it doesn't seem like it's being 3D accelerated. Maybe do you need a special executable for the 3D accelerated version? Maybe you do. Maybe that's the whole thing. Maybe I need to find. Maybe there's a 3D accelerated. Maybe I just need OpenGL Quake or something. I don't know. Performance level still seems kind of low, but maybe it's not. It's fully playable. Looks fine, in my opinion. You can see for yourself right here. Yeah. The more I think about it, the more I think I have to get the different executable for the OpenGL version for 3D acceleration of Quake. Oops, that happens. I don't know what I was thinking there. But yeah, Quake plays fine on it. Like I said, I still think the performance seems a little bit low, but it plays fine. No, I'm not going to go back and record footage for the OpenGL Quake on this machine. Too lazy. Okay, so here's Wolfenstein 3D, like third encounter for the Mac. Now this actually is sort of a Mac exclusive because it's not like a faithful port of Wolfenstein 3D. Things are changed, obviously the sound is different, but I believe it's like high resolution over the old DOS port. I think the soldiers aren't sprites anymore. I think they're actually like, you know, you can see all the angles and sides of them. This game's kind of a mix of like Wolfenstein and Wolfenstein Spear of Destiny, and the levels are kind of mixed up a little bit. And I believe there's different weapons in this. A couple, I think like the flamethrower might be in this version. And some of the bosses are mixed up, and enemies from like Spear of Destiny. So it's kind of its own thing. It's not, but it kind of is its own thing. So I guess this sort of a Mac exclusive here. Okay, so we'll just finish off here with my thoughts on this machine too, Alone in the Dark here, the Mac version. So, this machine, I mean, it's doing well. I mean, you know, I haven't had any really, now that it's all put together running, I haven't had any really problems more than a PC. Maybe. I mean, the sound is fine as long as I'm not trying to capture it for whatever reason. Sometimes it doesn't stream the audio from the CDs unless there's something I'm not doing because it's a Mac version, but I don't know. I can't shake the feeling that if I look at it sideways, it's going to stop working or it's going to like fall apart or something. I don't know why. Just like those cases, even though it's just sitting there now. But I mean, it's a decent machine so far. It's doing mostly what I need it to do. Except, you know, issues like MechWarrior 2 where I just get that weird error. I don't know how many more games I might have that problem with. So I have another Mac from around the same time period that I really like. Even though it's a tower, I'm going to make a video on that, and we'll see if it can dethrone this G3 as my 90s game, late 90s gaming Mac. So we'll see. It's another late 90s Mac. So I don't know, that might be an upcoming video. We'll see if I can dethrone this one, and maybe I like that one more, even though it's a tower. It doesn't quite fit into my setup as well. But I mean, this Mac does the job. It's just, but it's got a lot of quirks, and I don't really care for the quirks. So, but if you see one, you can pick it up for a couple bucks, 20, 30 bucks. Yeah, especially if you're not planning to tinker with it and just use it as is. It's still a decent machine. So yeah, I'd recommend picking one of them up. It's just, it's a Mac. That's all I had to say about it.